Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Behind the Signs. We are so blessed to have Sherry Walling, PhD. She is a highly respected clinical psychologist and entrepreneur, speaker, and specializes in helping businesses navigate the unique challenges of building and scaling successful businesses while maintaining your own mental health and well-being. Sherry has over 20 years experience as a clinical psychologist and has helped countless entrepreneurs develop the skills they need to effectively manage stress and achieve work-life balance. She is a sought-after speaker, the host of her own podcast, Zen Founders, and the author of the book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Keeping Your Shit Together, how to run your business and not let your business run you. Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this important topic.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Joe. Thanks.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Usually a lot of our talks have to do with talking to sign wholesalers and the best way to build a channel letter set. So to talk about mental health and entrepreneurship it's a really important topic. So in your book, you say, and I think this is something business owners don't think a lot about, but if your mental health suffers as a business owner, the business suffers. So this is an important part of your work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think sometimes business owners forget what resources they really hold. Like we think of resources as maybe money in the bank or a number of staff that we employ. But excuse me, I might argue that our most significant resource in running our business is ourselves, is our mind, is our creative capacity, our ability to communicate, our ability to think outside the box, our ability to see an opportunity. And when we are not careful with that particular resource, I think our businesses really run the risk of all kinds of implosion when we don't allocate the resource of our intellectual ability and our energy well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important, and I know I've shared a little bit with you. I was a sign shop owner for years. And, I think about, I don't know how much you know about the sign industry. I know you work with a
Not
lot
a
of
lot.
tech. It's a great industry. A lot of really talented, creative, smart people. Most of the business owners, they've all bootstrapped it. Hey, I got a cell phone and a credit card, and I'm going to start this sign shop that manufactures, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of products. But it's a hard business. Like margins are, tight, and unlike maybe some of the tech founders you've worked with in the sign industry, it's like the business thrives on the next sale. So you're always out having to work really
Always
hard.
selling.
Yeah, always selling. So, and then for me, I had two different shops. One was ended up being a pretty good sized one. Had about 60 employees, and we were doing big, like we did the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, and it was a huge project. But for me, and it started really early in the business too. It's like, okay, I'm starting this business. I'm going to go out. I'm going to make a sale. Then I'm going to work at night. Managing it, putting the pieces together. And then next thing you know, I'm 5 years, 6 years, 7 years down the road where I'm stuck in this place where I'm working at my desk, 6 days a week, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, telling myself, hey, all right, after this week, I'm going to get caught up. I'm going to get ahead. And then I'm going to have a little bit better of a work-life balance. And after years, it really wore me out and had a real negative impact on my mental health. And I'm not afraid to share this. I shared it with you a little bit too, but at some point it broke me down so much that my health suffered. I wasn't exercising, and in order to escape that stress, I found myself sitting at my desk at night. It's like, oh, no one's around the shop. I'm going to work on this next half a dozen quotes till 8 o'clock at night. My wife's calling me, yes dear, I'll be home pretty soon, I promise. I'm missing opportunity to be with my kids, and next thing I know, I'm drinking 3 beers to kind of wind myself down.
Calm yourself down.
Yeah. And it's like I've now that I spend most of my time talking to sign shop owners, now that I'm doing customer support and all that for Sign Tracker, I'm finding that it's common. So many of these shop owners are experiencing the same thing. So, how does someone like me start to, have a work-life balance?
Yeah. I think one of the things that is a superpower for a lot of entrepreneurs is simply to move from one difficult thing to the next difficult thing. There's not like a pause button where they stop and even take an inventory of like, how am I doing? That's not like a question that's asked very often. There's just the sense of like, I completed this and what's next? And what's next? And what's next? And what's next? And 5 years later, you're working 12-hour days, drinking at night alone, and you've not ever developed the capacity to check in internally and say, hey, how am I doing? And so I think one of the really important skills for entrepreneurs is to be able to have the capacity for self-reflection, to have a little bit of space in your life where you do a check-in. How is my body? How is my emotion life? How is my brain? Am I just tired of making decisions? Am I tired of writing copy? Am I tired of thinking through things? How are my relationships? And to have a little bit of an ability to take inventory on these different important parts of your life to more carefully create rest, create energy, create supportive resources for the parts of you that you may be overutilizing in the quest to grow your business.
That's good. Excuse me. One thing there's a lot of pride in the sign industry in the hustle, right?
Yeah.
And so you talk about sustainable hustle in your book. So what is what is, because everything you said makes sense, but like how do I start? If I was that person that was completely burnt out, like what would you think would be one of the first things if you were working with me, for example, and I came to you and said, Sherry, will you please be my therapist? I'm a mess, help me to
absolutely. I'm on board. Let's do it.
I'm a big believer in therapy, by the way, for sure.
Yeah.
But even that didn't come till much later. I certainly, I might have avoided the years of burnout if I had, sought the help of a therapist much sooner. But, how do you, because that mind is, I got to keep doing this. My business relies on it. What is sustainable hustle where you can still be assured, like in your mind, like how do you change that mindset where you can be assured in your mind, your business isn't going to die if you're not there at your desk till 10 o'clock at night. I need to start taking care of myself. So.
Yeah. So when we talk about burnout, I think people think that burnout is caused by lots and lots of work. And there's some sort of very interesting data to suggest that burnout is actually, we're more vulnerable to burnout when there's a gap between what's really meaningful to us and how we spend our time. And there's also, I think, a driver of burnout that I would describe it as a repetitive stress injury. It's doing the same thing in the same way with our brains over and over. So one of the things that I think is most important to preventing burnout is diversifying how we use our brains and how we use our energy. So early stage, I would make probably the unpopular argument that it's really important for entrepreneurs to have a hobby, to have something that is totally separate from how they spend their time at work, that is also an outlet for their passion and for their energy, that feels really important. Because I think the thing that can happen is that all of the resources get pulled into the business in a way that's actually unnecessary. Working 15-hour days is often sort of confronting diminishing returns. We feel that we're being productive because we're sort of sitting butt in seat, staring at the screen, doing the thing that we do. But from a neurological perspective, after about 6 hours of focus, there's just no way that our brains are functioning at their optimal level. So shorter hours, more intensity, less distraction, and then anchoring other parts of our life, whether it's time with children and family, whether it's time in a hobby, having those other things have a really clearly carved out place in our lives so that it makes our brain stop doing the same thing over and over, shift into something else. And the risk that people take is, or they think that by working less, they're going to fall behind. And I've challenged many entrepreneurs to do this, to actually do an experiment where they collect the data. And I say, cap your workday at 6 hours, like, but be super focused for 6 hours. And then see how that compares to the productivity of your typical week, where maybe it's more like 11 hours, 12 hours, your typical day rather. So working less, but working in a more focused way, and then having these other parts of our lives that are very important to us, that diversify our neurological activity, are the, some of my favorite strategies for preventing burnout.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because we do, I think, especially in the sign industry, like we tend to take a lot of pride in how hard we're working, but then, yeah, years and years and years later, even at the end of a year, you're looking at profitability and you ask yourself, man, wait, I've worked 60 hours a week. Why is my business suffering? Like, why am I not making money with all that? And it's probably because you're just not taking care of yourself and making decisions about the business in a way that is having a negative impact because you're so stressed and you're not thinking clearly. But
sorry if I could just add in, I
Yes.
think one of the outcomes that we want to look at too is it's not just profit. It's also like how much joy is in our lives. How closely connected are we to the people around us? And that's what I mean when I talk about that self-reflection and taking inventory of the different parts of our lives. And it's possible that you will have seasons of your life or of your year where you are all in on the business, where you are working ridiculous hours. Maybe you're getting ready for a launch. You're just really pushing something through. But that self-reflective capacity allows us to say, okay, I did that for 6 weeks in preparation for this big launch. And now it's time to shift some of that energy back to my relationships, or to shift some of that energy back to my health. Maybe it's time to start training for a marathon again. And so we can have an ebb and flow. I don't think things need to be in balance at all times. It's not like equal time on running, equal time on business, equal time on family. Like that, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But the pause and the self-reflection lets us know when it's time to make an adjustment or time to shift into a different focus.
Yeah, that's good. I remember having lots of weeks where I thought if I just have everything in perfect balance, it's gonna all be fantastic. I'm gonna spend this much time doing this. That usually when I would write out a schedule like that, it would last a day, two, maybe if I was lucky. So, so just from like what are some of the things like a person that's just trying to get started? Would you recommend, if I'm, you know, obviously stepping back and doing some reflection, what are some tools that a person could use? Would it be maybe engaging with a therapist, or joining a gym, getting a personal trainer, going to a meditation class? I mean, what are some of the things?
Oh, all of those things. I think one of the things, so that there are lots of tools, but the thing that we're trying to do is regulate our energy. So we're either amping up our energy, increasing it, or trying to calm it down. And you can do that in sort of problematic ways, like you sort of shared your example of drinking beers late at night in the office alone. That's probably not the optimal way to try to calm down your system and regulate yourself and get yourself ready for sleep. But there's a variety of tools, though, that can help us either turn up the volume of our focus and energy or turn it down. And so I am a big fan of a journaling practice, simple journaling practices, tracking the highs and lows of our days, paying attention to the parts of our work or the parts of our life that are really life-giving, where we feel a lot of energy, and then paying attention to the parts of our life where we're like, this is sucking my soul. That kind of data over time can be really instrumental in helping us understand what to do more of and what to do less of. Simple practice can be a couple sentences each night, doesn't have to take a long time. There's other journals like the 5-Minute Journal, which have just simple prompts. They include gratitude practices. They include a little bit of that self-reflection question that I was mentioning earlier. Mm-hmm. I think there's also probably a very, very strong relationship between movement and the way that we take care of our bodies and our mental health. So anybody who is a little bit familiar with my work or maybe has seen my TED Talk, is I talk a lot about the role of movement in mental health. So If you need to jumpstart your day, get your energy going, get sort of amped up for a big day, I think weightlifting, running, moving, any of those things that just sort of help us to feel awake and alive. I know a lot of people like the cold plunge sauna thing,
Yeah.
but all of that is just sort of telling our cells, time to go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So those kinds of practices are unique for each person, but having a system that helps you know, okay, I'm ramping up and entering my workday with focus and with clarity and with like big energy. And then I'm closing down my work time with some reflection, with some meditation, and I'm getting ready to intentionally shift into a different part of my life, into my life as a partner or as a parent or, you know, as a dog mom or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you're opening and closing your work time very intentionally.
I love it. That's great. Well, Sherry, thank you for joining us. I hope that this talk is helpful to a lot of sign shop owners. And, you know, I think the big thing is you're not alone, right? I mean, that's the one thing I struggled with so much, sitting at my desk till 9 o'clock at night. And I remember walking through the shop, you know, especially after being there for hours, exhausted, had a couple beers. I still had to drive 30 minutes home, you know, locking up this 60,000 square foot shop, and, you know, all the lights are off, and leaving, and I'm the last guy in the parking lot. I just felt like I was alone in all that, that mess, you know, I think your book, it's clear that these are really common problems with business owners. So thanks for encouraging us. Thanks for this important work. And I'm going to put a link to the book for sign shop owners. You need to get this book and read Sherry's book. There's so much helpful information in here. And also I'll put a link to the Zen Founders podcast as well. But Sherry, thank you for spending time with us today. We're going to get this message out to the sign world.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Bye. If you are interested in being featured on Behind the Signs, we would love to connect with you and hear about the unique ways you are working in the sign industry. Please reach out to us on our Facebook group Behind the Signs and send us a direct message.